Everything that I do is to give you glory. Everything that I do, I give you glory. Oh, give you glory. Life wrapped in faith, wrapped in faith. Yeah, wrapped in faith. Life wrapped in faith.
Thank you for joining us. So today, I want to share a story with you guys. I want to share a story about how God took me from my comfort zone to a season where I called my wilderness season. So, a wilderness season is a period of time where we grow spiritually. We are being refine. It is a period of time where God uses to prepare us for our purpose, for our calling. So this is a story when God took me from a place where I was so comfortable to a place where I did not know what was happening in my life. So it started off in 2019. 2019, no, let me track back. It was actually 2018. In 2018, my husband gave me a call and he said, "Hey, what do you think about moving to a different state?" And to be honest, I thought that was a joke because where I was comfortable. I was happy. I had everything. Okay. I had my family who lived, let's say, about 10 minutes away from me. And when my mom cooked, she cooked for two houses, her house and my house. So which meant I didn't have to do a lot of cooking. Okay. I had a guaranteed place where my kids will sleep over. I had a place where kids will go and spend the whole day. I could go out without having to worry about coming back home a certain time. I had friends, good friends, that when I was overseas, I would call them and be like, "Hey, the kids have a birthday party to attend." They would go to my house, help my husband dress the kids and take the kids to the party. So when I say I had everything where I had everything. At church, I was serving. At church, I was running events. I was doing whatever. I was a type of person who I wanted to be in control. I wanted to know what's coming next. I wanted to know what my week is going to look like. So my week was planned, it was automated. And that's not how faith works. Know that the faith is evidence of things not yet seen. I wanted to see things. I wanted to be in control of things before done. And God was like, not on my watch. God wanted something different for me. And another thing that I wanted to point out is that in that season of my life, I was busy. I was so busy. I was constantly running markets. I was constantly at church doing things. But one thing I know for sure is I wasn't productive. And so when I got that phone call from my husband, he was actually visiting Adelaide. When he called and said, "Hey, what do you think about moving?" I laughed. I laughed because I knew it was never going to happen. I knew that I always get things done my way, and my way was staying where I was, and I didn't want to move. Time went by. He kept pressing. He kept telling me that he wanted to try something different for our family. And I was resistant. I was praying against it. I was telling God that I'm fine where I am. I'm comfortable where I am, and I don't want to move. I have everything that I need. God managed to speak to my parents, and my parents spoke to me, and they told me that God gave them the green light. There was also a time when I was at church, this new family came to our church, and I was having a conversation with the wife, the lady, and I was telling her, "Look, my husband's in Adelaide and I might have to be moving, but I really don't want to go." And she was telling me the importance of being together as family, the importance of being obedient, the importance of following what God wants us to do. And so that kind of gave me a bit of peace. But within myself, I told myself I will go only for, let's say, a year or so. I'll be obedient. But when I get there, I'll make sure I come back. So I went with my own plan. So comes April 2019, we packed everything. We moved to South Australia. When we got to South Australia, it was like a holiday. Okay, we got there. It's a new state. If you haven't been to Adelaide, it's a beautiful state. It's peaceful. It's greenery. You know, the beaches are beautiful. Like the nature in Adelaide is amazing. The hills, the winery. I was excited of being in a new state. But to me, it was like, I'm in a holiday. After this holiday, I'm going to go home. So every Sunday after church, we went to visit a new place. We ate out. We did all the things that tourism people will do, right? That's what we used to do. Until when we got the kids into school, and then my husband started work, and now my brain started telling me it's time to go back home because the holiday mode was over. But then this was home now. And I started feeling like something was wrong. This is the first time in my entire life I experienced depression. I found myself in bed every day. I found myself going low on my energy. I found myself losing joy, losing motivation. You know, I only got up to go and get the kids from school. I only got up if I had to cook dinner. I only got up if I had to get up. So it was a season of my life where I was just hating everything around me. And to make matters worse, lockdown happened. So I couldn't just get into the car and drive back to Melbourne where my family is. I was now in a position where I was in a new state, no friends, okay? I didn't have my connection. I didn't have my community. I didn't have the support that I once had. And in life, this is what I've learned, and I didn't know it back then. I learned that when God wants your attention, when God wants to talk to you, He will move you from one place to another. He will put you into a place of isolation where He can get your full attention, and then He will give you whatever He needs to give you. And that's what happened to me in Adelaide. Adelaide was a season of wilderness. Adelaide was a season where I had no choice but to be still. Because remember, in Melbourne, I was never still. I was always moving from one event to another, from one thing to another. I was always busy. So being in Adelaide, I had to sit in silence. I had to sit with my own thought. I had to learn to listen to God. And it was painful. That season of my life, at beginning, I was very resistant. I didn't want to listen to God. I told myself that I have to go back. As soon as the borders are open, I'm going to go back. God was trying to talk to me. God was trying to show me something. He wanted to show me my purpose, but I was running away from it. I didn't want to be still. And then, like I said, lockdown happened. I had no choice but to actually listen. God started showing me this, and this is the lesson I learned in that season of my life. He started showing me the gift that He gave me and how to take care of the gift that you gave me. The first thing that He showed me was my children. God showed me that He called me to be a mom, okay? And what was I doing? When I was in Melbourne, I allowed my kids to go and sleep over at my family, and there's nothing wrong with that, okay? Something we have to remember, it's important to have a village to raise your kids, but you also have to know that they are your responsibility. You have to step up. When we lived in Melbourne, my kids called me sis and called my mom. That's how much time they spent with her. And God was reminding me that He called me to be a mom for a reason, and that I needed to be a mom that was intentional, a mom that was present for the children. I needed to pay attention in every area of my child and learn how to support each one of them. That was the first thing that God showed me. The second thing that He showed me was my marriage. God reminded me that He called me to be a wife. And not just any wife, a prudent wife, one that is able to strategize and analyze, one that's able to be the helper that God called them to be. So God was giving me all these insight and downloads that I didn't know about these roles that I was playing. I thought I was a good mom, I was a great wife, which I was, but God wanted me to go in a deeper level in those areas of my life. And to be honest, there is no way I was able to notice what God wanted for me if I was in that busy environment. So in my head, I thought that I was moving to Adelaide because my husband maybe just wanted a different lifestyle, or my husband wanted to be closer to family because he grew up in Adelaide. But God used that move to capture me, used that move to prepare me for what we are seeing today. Life Wrapped in Faith was born in that season of me being still. God gave me, I like to say, my purpose. You know, He called it focus on the family. Everything I did, God was telling me to focus on the family. And to me, I was like, God, that's too simple. Like, I already focus on the family. I already look after my family. I look after my husband. I don't need to make this my purpose. But He was like, no, this is your purpose. Sometimes we think that we have to travel overseas and preach the gospel and do this, but gospel is simple. It is your everyday life in your home, especially as mothers. Our children are our ministry. Our marriages are our ministry. And so God reminded me that my ministry was my home, and that I needed to be intentional, and I needed to be present. I needed to pay attention to the gift that He gave me. And so at the time, it was hard. It was hard for me to accept it. It was hard for me to surrender because, like I said to you, when we moved to Adelaide, I told myself we're going to go back. And I did try to go back. We did try to move back to Melbourne. But guess what? Doors did not open. God shut all the doors because it was not the time for us to move back. I knew for sure that I needed to surrender to God and do exactly what He called me to do before moving back. But I kept running away from that. There was a time when I remembered when I started realizing that this is really what God wanted me to do. We were staying with family. We were staying with my mother-in-law in a smaller house. And I remember telling God this one time, and we had been already in South Australia for about a year and a half, and we were still staying with family. We were looking for a house, we were applying for houses, and everything was just rejection after rejection. And I was tired. And I say to God, if it's really your will for me to be here in Adelaide, I want you to give me a house today. I don't care how you do it. I want it done today. And guess what? I received a text message. I was actually on a shoot. We're doing a shoot for my business. And I received a text. Someone said, hey, B, I'm not sure if you're looking for a house, but we've got a house for you. And I looked at my phone. I said, this better be you, God. I got home that night and I shot the message to my husband. I said to my husband, call them. And my husband looked at the time and said, it's 6, it's late. And I said, call them. My husband called. And the person said, hey, I'm actually here. Come now. We went there that evening. We walked into their house. And I just want to give a bit of a backstory. When we were looking for houses, there was one house I fell in love with, and it had this beautiful arch. And I really wanted that house, and I applied for that house, and we did not get that house. And so when I walked to this house that my husband and I went to see that same day when I told God, if it's your will, give me a house today. I walk into the house. The first thing I see is this beautiful arch. And I said, oh my God, this is definitely from God, because God knew how much my heart wanted that arch. That was the first thing I knew was from God. The second thing is when I moved from Melbourne to Adelaide, I gave away my fridge. And I remember someone telling me, don't worry about your fridge. When you get to Adelaide, God will give you another fridge. When we were walking through the house, we're looking at this new place. The guy that was taking us to the house, he said, hey, I hope you don't mind. My mom left the fridge in the house That's the second thing, confirmation that it was from God. Because remember, someone told me, don't worry about the fridge. God will give you a house with the fridge. So there was two things in that house, an arch and the fridge. That's when I knew it was God. And few other things that happened, it was like we viewed the house without anyone else being there. Because if you know anything about renting market, when you go out there, there is thousands of people viewing the same house. You just discourage as you get there. There was no house. There was no one viewing the house. There was no bond required. And the price that we got for that house, it's a price that most people pay per week. And we got that for a month. So that was exactly what God gave us. And that house was closer to a beach. That house had a big backyard, a veggie patch. It had everything that we needed. But the point of this story is the fact that I asked God, if it's your will for me to be in this state, give me a house today. And that same very day, God gave me a house. That's when I knew that I can't be playing with God. God wants me here for a reason, and God is teaching me something that I need to surrender. It was painful, but I surrender. And I just want to make it clear, when I say I surrender, it's not saying that I started walking this straight path, everything was perfect. Those days that I was still resistant, those times where I still doubted, those times where I didn't want to do it anymore. But the biggest lesson that I learned in this journey was faith. God was teaching me what faith was. He took me through a journey where I had to understand what faith was, in a journey where I had to live by faith and not by sight. I didn't know what our tomorrow would look like, and God was providing for our tomorrow. I didn't know what our situation would be like. God turned our situation around. I've got testimonies after testimony how God came through for us. At that moment, I didn't know. But what I realize now is God was preparing me for life wrapped in faith. God was taking me through these stories and seasons because He had a purpose. He had a plan for this podcast, for this message, for my purpose. And so, again, I'm just sharing the surface of what I went through in the wilderness season. It's something that I'll go deeper in season 2. But I just wanted to share how I was in a comfort zone and I wasn't growing. I was in a busy place, but I wasn't productive. But when God took me away into isolation, when I had no choice but to fully surrender to Him, I came to a place of understanding what faith is, a place of understanding what it takes to have faith. And I came to a place of understanding my purpose, my calling, which is focused on the family, being present and intentional with what God gave me. And I'm really excited that I've stepped out in faith. I've stepped out in confidence, starting life wrapped in faith, because there is so much more to come. And as I said before, I need you to join in. I need you to join a conversation. I need you to comment. I need you to share with someone that needs to hear this, because this message is not just for me. Because if it were just for me, I wouldn't be doing this. This is for us. It's for mothers. It's for wives. It's for husbands. You need to know how to support your wives. And so in this season, in this episode, I just wanted to share how God took me from a comfort zone to my wilderness season. And I pray that this has encouraged you to look at your own story and see what God is telling you. Because sometimes it's hard for us to hear God when we're in a place where it's too busy and it's too noisy. Trust God in the season. Be still and listen and see what is He trying to tell you. I just want to encourage you to pay attention to the season that you're in, because God does speak to us in every season. We just need to turn down the noise, cancel everything around you, and lean into God. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's session, and I pray that you will continue to engage in, okay? Because I'm praying for you. So don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.
Oh, wrapped in faith. Every step I take, I walk in grace.